Have you felt that something in you is ready to move, but life does not respond? Not in a dramatic way, not with chaos or collapse, just a quiet sense that you are prepared, and yet nothing advances. You are not confused. You are not resisting. You are not afraid. And still, momentum does not arrive. This moment can feel strangely frustrating because it comes after effort, not before it. You have already reflected. You have already adjusted. You have already let go of what no longer fits. So why does everything feel paused? This pause is not random. When movement stalls at this stage, it is rarely because you lack clarity or strength. It happens because different parts of your system are not aligned around the same center. Your mind may see the path clearly. Your body may be willing to act, but something inside remains tense, undecided, compressed. This tension does not shout. It whispers, feels like friction. You try to move forward, and something subtly pulls back. You think clearly, but action feels heavy. You feel available, but energy does not follow. This is not failure. It is misalignment. And misalignment does not respond to pressure. The more you push, the more the system resists. Not because it is broken, but because it is trying to preserve coherence. At this point, we want to speak to you directly. We are the Pleiadians. We speak with you not as guides above you, but as a presence beside you. Our role is not to direct your choices. It is to support the emotional field where your choices are formed. And within that field, there is a center that has been bypassed for too long. The heart, not as sentiment, not as reaction, but as the axis of your entire system. When the heart is not holding the center, the body reacts and the mind interferes. Each tries to lead in its own way. The result is effort without flow. But when the heart is allowed to occupy its natural position, something shifts quietly. The body relaxes. The mind stops arguing. Energy stops pulling in opposite directions. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. What happens is simpler. Things begin to make sense without explanation. Choices stop feeling urgent. Steps stop feeling forced. Movement returns, not because you pushed harder, but because resistance dissolved. This is not a technique you need to learn. It is not something new you must acquire. It is a return to an internal order that already exists. Most delays are not delays at all. They are signals that the center has not been acknowledged yet. When the heart is restored to its natural role, the system remembers how to move. And when it remembers, progress does not need to be chased. It happens, quietly, naturally, without strain. When people realize that something feels misaligned, the instinct is almost always the same. They try to fix it, not because something is broken, but because discomfort creates urgency, and urgency asks for movement. This is where many paths quietly derail. Instead of listening to what the pause is signaling, most people choose a direction and push. Some move downward into action. They tighten their routine. They force decisions. They rely on discipline, pressure, and control. They tell themselves that movement will create clarity. Others move upward into thought and spirituality. They analyze more deeply. They search for explanations. They meditate, visualize, reinterpret, and wait for signs. They tell themselves that understanding will create readiness. Both approaches feel responsible. Both feel active. And both quietly bypass the same thing. The center. When action moves without the heart, it becomes reactive. It is driven by urgency rather than clarity. When awareness expands without the heart, it becomes detached. Insight increases, but grounding disappears. In both cases, the system splits. The body pushes forward, the mind pulls upward, and the space in between remains tense. This tension is not dramatic. It is constant. People describe it as exhaustion without effort, as doing everything right and still feeling drained, as movement that never fully settles. This happens because effort has replaced coherence. Instead of alignment, the system is being managed. Decisions are monitored. Emotions are controlled. Thoughts are redirected. Nothing is allowed to rest. The heart cannot function in this environment, not because it is weak, but because it is being bypassed. Many believe they are following their heart when they are actually following emotional charge or mental justification. The heart does not rush. It does not demand certainty. It does not argue its position. The heart integrates. It allows instinct and awareness to occupy the same space without conflict. When the heart is ignored, lower centers try to protect. They tighten the body. They anticipate threat. They seek control and predictability. At the same time, higher centers attempt to override this tension. They rationalize discomfort. They reinterpret fear. They escape into ideas of purpose, destiny, or timing. The result is a vertical stretch inside the system. Energy is pulled upward and downward at the same time. This stretch creates fatigue that rest does not resolve. Not because you are doing too much, but because the system is compensating for the absence of a stable axis. This is also why many practices stop working after a while. Not because they fail, but because they are being used to avoid the one place that needs attention: the heart. The heart is where discomfort must be felt, not managed. Where fear must be acknowledged, not transcended. Where intention must be embodied, not imagined. Without this step, movement remains conditional. You can act, but it feels forced. You can understand, but it feels distant. From our perspective, this is not a personal error. It is a pattern learned over time. People were taught to push or rise above, to control or escape. Rarely were they taught to integrate. Integration happens when the heart is allowed to hold the center again. Until that happens, the system will resist forward motion, not to punish you, but to prevent you from moving while divided. This resistance is not an obstacle. It is a signal that effort is no longer the answer, and that something quieter and far more effective is ready to take its place. When the heart is not holding the center, the system does not stop functioning. Compensates. Lower centers react. Higher centers interfere. Energy keeps moving, but without harmony. This is why effort increases while results feel unstable. The heart is not simply another energy center. It is the point where everything either cooperates or competes. Below the heart live survival, action, boundaries, and instinct. Above the heart live perception, intuition, and awareness. When these regions operate without mediation, they pull against each other. The body wants protection. The mind wants expansion. Neither one fully trusts the other. The heart resolves this tension, not by choosing one side, but by holding both within the same field. When the heart returns to the center, something subtle changes. Action loses its urgency. Thought loses its pressure. The system stops arguing with itself. This is alignment, and alignment does not require time. Time is needed when something must be constructed. Alignment happens when something is corrected. It is like a structure that was always capable of standing, but was leaning in opposite directions at once. The moment the axis is restored, resistance fades. From our perspective, this is the gift. Not power, not information, not technique, orientation. When orientation returns, the system reorganizes itself naturally. You may notice this as quiet clarity, less internal debate, a sense that the next step no longer feels heavy. This simplicity is not superficial. It is the signature of coherence. At this point, acknowledging the heart as the axis helps stabilize this organization. Writing does not create alignment, confirms it. So write the following sentence in the comments. I allow my heart to be the axis that aligns my actions and my awareness. This is not a ritual or a test. It is recognition. When the system recognizes its center, it responds. Urgency softens. Tension releases. Clarity becomes available. From there, the heart no longer needs to compete with the mind or the body. It simply holds them together. And when nothing is pulling you apart anymore, movement resumes on its own. Not forced, not rushed, aligned. When the heart returns to the center, the first thing that changes is not your life. It is your internal environment. The emotional field begins to reorganize quietly. What once felt compressed starts to loosen. What once felt urgent begins to slow. What once demanded constant attention loses its grip. This does not happen because problems disappear. It happens because your relationship with them changes. When the heart holds the axis, emotions stop colliding with each other. Fear no longer needs to shout to be heard. Desire no longer needs to rush to be fulfilled. Sadness no longer needs to justify itself. Everything has a place. This is why alignment often feels like relief before it feels like clarity. The system exhales. You may notice that certain reactions simply do not activate anymore. Things that once pulled you into explanation, defense, or anticipation feel distant. Not suppressed, just irrelevant. This is a sign that the emotional field is stabilizing. When the field stabilizes, it becomes easier for discernment to emerge. You start sensing what belongs to you and what does not, which emotions are yours to process and which were absorbed from others, which situations deserve your energy and which do not. This clarity is not intellectual. It is felt. From our perspective, this is the moment where protection naturally appears. Not protection as a wall, but protection as coherence. When your emotional field is coherent, intrusion becomes difficult. External pressure loses leverage. Manipulation loses access. Old patterns lose entry points. Not because you are resisting them, but because there is nothing unstable for them to attach to. This is why alignment through the heart changes relational dynamics so quickly. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-adjusting. You stop negotiating with what drains you, not out of hardness, but out of clarity. The emotional field no longer leaks energy. And when energy stops leaking, presence increases. You become more available not to everything, but to what actually matters. This is also why fatigue often decreases without rest. The system is no longer compensating for misalignment. It is no longer holding itself together through effort. Instead, it is being held by coherence. From here, something important happens. Your intuition becomes quieter and more accurate. Your emotions become simpler and more truthful. Your actions become fewer and more effective. This is not discipline. It is alignment doing its work. And alignment does not need supervision. Once the heart is established as the axis, the field begins to regulate itself. You may still feel emotions. You may still face challenges. But they no longer destabilize the center. They pass through it. This is how stability is built without force. Not by controlling emotions, but by giving them a stable center to move through. When the emotional field is held in this way, the system stops preparing for impact. It stops bracing. And when bracing ends, energy becomes available for movement again. Not frantic movement, not reactive movement, but clear, grounded steps that do not need to be justified. This is the state where the system begins to trust itself again. And when trust returns, progress becomes natural. When alignment settles, the change does not arrive as an event. It arrives as a recognition. Most people expect transformation to feel like effort rewarded over time. They imagine progress as something that must be built, accumulated, or earned. But what you are experiencing now does not follow that pattern. This shift does not come from addition. It comes from correction. When the heart becomes the axis, the system is no longer divided. Energy stops negotiating with itself. And when internal negotiation ends, momentum appears immediately. This is why the change can feel sudden, not dramatic, not explosive, sudden in its simplicity. Decisions that felt heavy become obvious. Situations that required constant thought lose importance. Choices stop asking for justification. Nothing new was learned. Something was aligned. This is difficult for the mind to accept because the mind values process. It expects steps, explanations, timelines. But the field responds to coherence, not effort. When coherence appears, response follows. From our perspective, this is why many people feel as if they have jumped levels. Not because they skipped work, but because the work was already done, scattered. Alignment gathers what was already present into a single direction. This is also why the body responds so quickly. The body does not need concepts. It responds immediately to safety and coherence. When the heart holds the axis, the body stops preparing for threat. Muscle tension releases. Breath deepens without intention. Energy that was being used to brace becomes available for movement. This is not relaxation. It is readiness without fear. The mind responds next. When the heart leads, thought loses its urgency. The need to predict, control, or rehearse diminishes. You may notice fewer thoughts, not because you are suppressing them, but because they no longer need to compensate for instability. Clarity replaces strategy. This is the moment many describe as an instant level up. But it is important to understand what actually changed. You did not rise above anything. You did not escape difficulty. You did not bypass emotion. You stopped being internally divided. Division creates delay. Unity creates movement. This is why alignment through the heart reorganizes the entire system at once. The lower centers trust again. The higher centers soften their grip. The heart no longer mediates conflict. It holds coherence. From here, action becomes cleaner. Not more aggressive. Not more ambitious. Cleaner. You act when action is needed. You wait when waiting is natural. You no longer confuse movement with progress. This does not mean life becomes effortless. It means effort is no longer wasted. Every step has weight. Every decision has direction. This is what alignment feels like when it is real. There is less to explain, less to prove, less to maintain. You are no longer trying to stay aligned. You are aligned. And from this state, progress does not accelerate, it stabilizes, which is far more powerful, because stability creates continuity, and continuity creates transformation that lasts. This is the difference between a temporary breakthrough and a permanent shift in level. When the heart holds the axis, the system does not revert easily. It remembers, and once it remembers, it does not return to fragmentation without warning. This is why the change feels irreversible. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is correct. Even when alignment is felt, there are subtle forces that can pull the heart out of the center again. They do not arrive as crises. They arrive as habits. The habit of rushing, the habit of anticipating outcomes, the habit of explaining yourself before anyone has asked. These movements often feel responsible. They feel mature. They feel like prevention, but they do not come from clarity. They come from pressure. Pressure compresses the heart, not enough to cause collapse, but enough to remove it from its role as the axis. When this happens, the system does not fail, compensates. The body tightens to protect. The mind accelerates to manage. Old patterns quietly step back in. Fear plays a role here, not fear as panic, but fear as constant anticipation. The system stays one step ahead, preparing for what might go wrong. Guilt does something similar, pulls the heart backward, toward responsibilities that are no longer yours, toward emotional weight that should have already been released. And then there is urgency. Urgency is one of the fastest ways to displace the heart. Convinces you that waiting is dangerous, that stillness means avoidance, that something must be decided immediately. But the heart does not respond to urgency. It responds to truth. When urgency leads, alignment weakens. When truth leads, alignment stabilizes. This is why naming what you are choosing matters. Not to control the system, but to clarify the reference point. Writing helps with this because it removes ambiguity. It tells the emotional field what no longer needs to be carried. So write the following sentence in the comments. I respect my own pace, and I allow my heart to remain the center. This sentence does not push anything forward. It releases pressure. When pressure releases, the heart has space to hold its position. People often notice that after this, the system becomes quieter. Less urgency, less inner tension, more patience without effort. This is not passivity. It is stability. From our perspective, stability is what allows alignment to remain present in daily life. Without it, the system keeps slipping back into compensation. With it, the heart stays available, not only in quiet moments, but in movement. You still act, you still decide, but you do so without leaving yourself behind. This is how alignment becomes lived rather than momentary. And when alignment is lived, the system no longer needs constant correction. It stays organized. When the heart remains in the center, action changes its nature. Movement no longer rises from tension. It no longer comes from urgency, pressure, or the need to secure outcomes. It comes from clarity. The lower centers of the system, those related to survival, movement, boundaries, and physical presence, are the first to respond when the heart holds the axis. They soften. This often surprises people. Many were taught that safety comes from control, that movement requires intensity, that boundaries must be firm to the point of hardness. But intensity is not the same as coherence. When the heart is present, the body no longer feels under threat. And when the body does not feel threatened, it does not overreact. Action becomes precise instead of impulsive. You may notice that decisions no longer demand immediate answers. You may feel less compelled to act just to relieve discomfort. You may pause, not from hesitation, but from discernment. This pause is not delay. It is alignment checking itself. The lower centers stop fighting for dominance because they no longer feel abandoned. They sense that the system is being guided from a stable point. This trust changes how boundaries form. Boundaries no longer arise from fear of intrusion. They arise from clarity of position. You do not build them. You do not defend them. They exist because they are true. This is why aligned boundaries rarely create conflict. They do not challenge others. They simply define space. When the heart holds the axis, the body understands where it stands. You may notice changes in posture, tone, timing. Your movements become simpler. Your responses become shorter. Your presence becomes clearer. You stop sending mixed signals. And when mixed signals disappear, unnecessary friction dissolves. From our perspective, this is one of the clearest signs that the lower centers are no longer operating in survival mode. Energy stops leaking into vigilance. It stops preparing for impact. Instead, it becomes available for movement that matters. This is why many people feel less tired without doing less. They are no longer bracing internally. Reaction consumes enormous energy. Aligned action conserves it. You may also notice that your relationship with effort changes. Effort is no longer something you apply constantly. It appears only when needed and disappears when it is not. You act without pushing. You stop without guilt. This creates a new rhythm, a rhythm that is neither passive nor aggressive. Responsive. When the heart remains the axis, the lower centers regain their original intelligence. They know when to move. They know when to wait. They know when to hold ground. You begin to trust this intelligence again. Not because you surrendered control, but because control is no longer necessary. The system is no longer divided. This also affects how you interact with others. You feel less compelled to explain yourself, less compelled to justify your pace or your choices. Not because you withdraw, but because your position feels internally settled. Others sense this. When your lower centers are aligned through the heart, your presence becomes consistent. Consistency communicates safety, both to yourself and to others. This safety allows interactions to simplify. You no longer negotiate your boundaries internally before expressing them. You no longer hesitate between saying yes or no. The answer emerges whole. This is how action regains its natural authority. Not authority over others, but authority within yourself. From here, movement stops being something you manage. It becomes something that happens. Life does not slow down. It becomes less noisy. You do not become inactive. You become precise. And precision changes everything. Because when action arises from alignment, it carries less resistance. Less resistance means less friction. And less friction means progress that does not exhaust you. This is what happens when the lower centers are aligned through the heart. They stop protecting against imaginary threats. They stop reacting to outdated signals. They respond to what is real, here, now. And when they do, movement no longer feels like something you have to survive. It feels like something you can inhabit, not because it is easier, but because it is no longer conflicted. When the heart holds the axis, awareness changes its quality, not by expanding outward, but by settling inward. The upper centers of the system, those associated with perception, intuition, and awareness, no longer need to compensate for instability below. They soften. This softness is often mistaken for passivity, but it is not. It is precision without pressure. When the heart is present, awareness stops trying to rise above experience. It no longer seeks distance as a form of safety. Instead, it stays connected. Many people unconsciously use awareness as a way to escape discomfort. They analyze feelings instead of feeling them. They observe patterns instead of inhabiting them. They search for meaning instead of allowing presence. This does not come from dishonesty. It comes from imbalance. When the lower centers are tense, the upper centers attempt to override them. They rise. But rising without a heart-centered axis creates dissociation. Insight increases, but embodiment weakens. When the heart is restored to the center, this need disappears. Awareness no longer floats above life. It rests within it. You may notice that intuition becomes quieter, less symbolic, less dramatic, but more accurate. You stop searching for signs. You stop interpreting everything. You simply know when something is correct or not. This knowing does not argue. It does not need validation. It arrives whole. From our perspective, this is one of the most misunderstood shifts. People expect higher awareness to feel expansive and euphoric. But real alignment feels grounded, feels simple. The mind no longer tries to solve everything. Thought becomes a tool again, not a manager. Ideas come when needed and leave when they are not. This creates space. Space for perception without overload. Space for insight without obsession. When awareness aligns through the heart, imagination stops competing with intuition. You no longer confuse fantasy with guidance. You no longer elevate thoughts simply because they feel elevated. Clarity replaces fascination. This also changes how you relate to uncertainty. You stop needing answers before moving. You stop demanding guarantees from intuition. You trust the rhythm of knowing. This trust does not come from belief. It comes from consistency. The system is no longer sending mixed signals. The heart holds the center. The body cooperates. Awareness listens. This cooperation creates a quiet authority. Not authority over reality, but authority within perception. You stop doubting your own clarity. Not because you suppress doubt, but because doubt no longer finds instability to attach to. This is how higher awareness becomes usable, not as insight alone, but as lived intelligence. From here, awareness does not pull you away from life. It brings you deeper into it. And when awareness is embodied in this way, it stops creating distance, creates presence. Presence that does not need explanation. Presence that does not need to be maintained. It simply remains. There is a moment when the system stops adjusting, not because everything is resolved, but because nothing inside is pulling in opposite directions anymore. It does not arrive with certainty. It arrives with stillness. The mind quiets without effort. The body settles without instruction. Awareness becomes present without searching. This is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of friction. When the heart holds the axis and both lower and upper centers cooperate, the system recognizes coherence. And coherence feels familiar. It does not feel new. It feels remembered. You may notice that you are no longer rehearsing conversations internally. You are no longer anticipating outcomes. You are no longer bracing for impact. Not because life became predictable, but because your center is no longer unstable. This is what integration feels like. Thought does not disappear. Emotion does not vanish. Action does not stop. They simply stop competing. Everything moves through the same reference point. From our perspective, this is the moment many people describe as a click, not a breakthrough, not an awakening, a settling. The system no longer asks, "Is this right?" It recognizes what is aligned and responds accordingly. This recognition does not need excitement. It needs continuity, and continuity depends on acknowledgement. Not acknowledgement from others, but from yourself. Writing helps seal this recognition because it gives the system a clear reference. It marks the point where coherence was felt and accepted. So write the following sentence in the comments. I recognize the alignment that is already present in me. This sentence does not create the state, confirms it. Confirmation allows the system to relax into what is already stable. After this, many people notice that clarity becomes less dramatic but more reliable. They stop asking whether they are aligned. They simply act from it. Doubt may still appear, but it no longer controls direction. The system has tasted coherence. And once coherence is recognized, it becomes easier to return to it. This is how alignment becomes integrated rather than momentary. Not by repeating effort, but by remembering reference. From here, progress no longer depends on motivation. It depends on presence. And presence is already available. When the system knows where its center is, it does not get lost easily. It may wander, but it knows how to come back. This is the quiet confidence of integration. Not loud, not performative, stable. When alignment stabilizes, life does not suddenly change its scenery. What changes first is how situations respond to you. The field becomes clearer. You may notice that decisions no longer demand long internal debate. Choices appear with less noise around them. You sense when something fits and when it does not without needing justification. This does not mean every choice is easy. It means every choice is clean. There is less emotional residue left behind. Relationships respond first. Conversations simplify. Misunderstandings lose momentum. Certain dynamics naturally loosen their grip. Not because people change overnight, but because your field is no longer offering the same access points. When coherence is present, confusion finds little room to operate. You stop over-explaining. You stop adjusting yourself to maintain harmony. You stop carrying responsibility for emotional states that are not yours. This is not withdrawal. It is precision. Your presence becomes consistent, and consistency is something others can feel. Some connections deepen because they resonate with this clarity. Others fade because they depended on instability. Neither outcome requires effort. They happen because the field reorganizes itself around coherence. You may also notice changes in timing. Things that felt delayed begin to move. Things that required force begin to respond with less resistance. This does not mean life becomes faster. It becomes synchronized. When the internal rhythm is coherent, external movement meets it more easily. From our perspective, this is one of the most misunderstood aspects of alignment. People expect alignment to attract more opportunities. What it actually does is remove distortion. What belongs comes closer. What does not belong loses traction. This can feel like simplification rather than expansion. Fewer distractions, fewer obligations, fewer emotional negotiations. But what remains feels more real. Energy stops scattering. You may notice that you are less tempted to intervene in every situation. Less tempted to fix what does not require fixing. Less tempted to manage outcomes in advance. This is not detachment. It is trust in coherence. When the field is stable, it no longer needs constant supervision. You respond when response is needed. You wait when waiting is correct. And neither state feels uncomfortable. This is how alignment expresses itself in daily life. Not as constant clarity, but as reliable orientation. You may still face uncertainty. You may still encounter challenges, but they no longer destabilize your center. They pass through it. This creates a new relationship with movement. You are no longer trying to make life cooperate. Life begins to meet you where you are. And when that happens, progress stops feeling like something you chase. It feels like something that unfolds, quietly, naturally, without resistance. This is the response of the field to coherence. When alignment has been present for a while, something important becomes clear. You are no longer trying to maintain it. It is maintaining you. This is often unexpected, because many people assume that a higher level of awareness should feel intense, elevated, or extraordinary. But this level feels different, feels quiet, stable, unremarkable in the best possible way. You are not constantly checking yourself. You are not monitoring your thoughts or emotions. You are not correcting your behavior to stay on track. You are simply living from a center that no longer shifts easily. This is where real change becomes visible. Your tolerance begins to recalibrate, not from hardness, not from superiority, from discernment. Situations that once felt acceptable now feel unnecessary. Conversations that relied on ambiguity lose their pull. Environments that require you to compress yourself become easier to leave. There is no drama around these changes. You do not need to justify them to yourself. You do not need to explain them to others. They happen because your system no longer negotiates with what destabilizes it. This is one of the clearest signs that alignment has become embodied. You stop revisiting decisions after they are made. You stop rehearsing future conversations internally. You stop weighing every option as if something essential might be lost. Not because you became indifferent, but because your center holds steady. This steadiness changes your relationship with effort. Effort becomes intentional rather than constant. You use it when direction calls for it. You release it when it creates friction. There is far less internal dialogue around obligation. The words "I should" begin to disappear. Action feels clean. Waiting feels clean. Even uncertainty feels clean. You may not know how events will unfold, but you know where you are standing while they unfold. And this changes how you meet life. From our perspective, this is the moment when the system truly trusts itself again. Trust does not announce itself as confidence. It does not feel like certainty. It feels like the absence of constant preparation. You stop scanning for threats that may never arrive. You stop anticipating disappointment before it exists. You stop bracing emotionally in advance. Presence replaces vigilance. This presence does not make you passive. It makes you available. Available to respond instead of react. Available to listen instead of defend. Available to move when movement is real. You may notice that your sense of identity also begins to soften. Not because you lose clarity about who you are, but because you no longer need to reinforce it. You are not proving anything. You are not protecting an image. You act and the action feels congruent. You speak and the words feel aligned. You choose and the choice does not echo with doubt. The system recognizes itself in these movements. This is why the new level does not feel like an achievement. There is no internal applause, no sense of having arrived. There is simply coherence, and coherence feels familiar. Feels like something you once knew and returned to. From here, growth does not stop, but it changes its tone. It is no longer driven by urgency. It is no longer fueled by dissatisfaction. It unfolds because the system is stable enough to evolve. This stability allows awareness to deepen without dissociation. It allows action to refine without aggression. It allows emotion to move without overwhelming the center. This is the difference between temporary clarity and sustained coherence. Temporary clarity excites the system. Sustained coherence grounds it. Excitement fades. Grounding remains. And grounding is what allows alignment to persist in real life. Not just in moments of insight, but in days, decisions, and relationships. This is what the new level actually feels like. Not elevated above life. Not removed from difficulty. Embedded within life, with a center that no longer needs constant protection. When alignment has settled into daily life, something subtle but decisive happens. You stop checking whether you are aligned. You live from it. This is where the process completes itself, not with intensity, not with affirmation, but with quiet certainty. The heart no longer needs to assert its place. It is already there. The system does not require reinforcement. It recognizes its own coherence. At this stage, there is nothing left to adjust. Not because life is perfect, but because the center is no longer moving. Challenges may still appear. Emotions may still pass through, but they do not displace you. They move around a stable axis. This is what it means for alignment to be sealed, not frozen, not rigid, reliable. You do not need to remember what to do when pressure arises. Your system already knows where to return. This return is not effortful. It is immediate. From our perspective, this is the moment when protection becomes natural. Not protection built through walls, but protection created by coherence. When the heart holds the center, intrusion loses leverage. External pressure no longer finds instability to attach to. Old patterns no longer find access points. Confusion no longer finds space to spread. This does not isolate you from life. It stabilizes your relationship with it. You engage without losing yourself. You care without absorbing what is not yours. You act without leaving your center behind. This is the quiet authority of alignment. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need validation. It is felt. At this point, acknowledging this state helps anchor it. Not to make it permanent, but to recognize what is already present. So write the following sentence in the comments. I remain centered in my heart, and I trust the alignment that guides me. This sentence does not create stability. It acknowledges it. Acknowledgement allows the system to relax fully into coherence. From here, there is nothing to maintain. Alignment does not require vigilance. It requires honesty. When honesty is present, the center holds. This is how the process completes itself. Not with effort, not with declaration, with presence. And when presence becomes familiar, the system no longer searches for itself. It lives from itself. This is the gift, not something added to you, but something restored within you. And once restored, it does not ask to be repeated. It simply remains.